Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's get started with our today's class 11th biology chapter, The Living World. Let's get started. When we try to define living, we look for distinctive characteristics of living organisms. When we try to define that what is living, what do we mean by the word living? Some things come in our mind like growth, reproduction, ability to see, mount a suitable response. These are the common features which we can see to define living, like growth. Anything which has growth is living. Anything which can reproduce is living. These are the common features. But some more features are there like metabolism, ability to self replicate, and interact. Interact means to interact with the nature or with something. Growth. All living organisms grow. We know that every living thing can grow. It increases in mass and increase in number of individuals are the characteristics of growth. Increase in mass and increase in number of individuals. These are the two characteristics of growth. Multicellular organism and plants. Let's see the difference of growth between these two. Multicellular organisms like animals or humans, right? Growth is by cell division which stops after some time. In multicellular organisms like animals and humans, their growth is done by cell division. But this cell division stops. It temporarily stops after some time. But in plants, in these also the growth is by cell division. But their cell division continue throughout the cell means throughout their lifespan the cell division continued and their growth increases day by day. Cell division occurs in certain tissues to replace lost cells. In multicellular organisms, cell division occurs only in certain tissues, not all tissues. It occurs in certain tissues to replace the lost cells. In case of plants, cell division occurs throughout lifespan, and in multicellular organisms, it stops after some time, or we can say it decreases after some time. Unicellular organisms also grow by cell division. The unicellular organisms means that are single celled. They also grow by cell division. This can be observed in vitro, that is outside, that is the technique by which tissues or cells are grown by simple counting the number of cells under microscope. We can also observe cell division in vitro means outside the body. This is done by simply counting the number of cells under a suitable microscope. In majority of higher animals and plants, growth and reproduction are mutually exclusive events. In majority of higher plants, the growth and reproduction, they are the mutually exclusive events. One must remember that increase in mass as a criteria of growth. By this we can say that mountains, boulders, sand mounds do grow. If we say that increase in mass is the sign of growth or is the feature of growth, then everything like mountains, boulders, sand mounds, they also grow. As there is a layer of sand, then when more sand deposit on the layer, it will grow. So we can also say that it is growth. However, this kind of growth also takes place in non-living objects by accumulation of material on the surface, as I have told you, while growth in living organisms is from inside. In case of living organisms, growth is from inside, while in non-living, it is by the accumulation. Growth, therefore, can't be taken as a defining property of living organisms. We cannot say that growth is the proper definition for living organisms because living organisms also grow and non-living also grow. Either their techniques are different. Whereas a dead organism doesn't grow. The person or the organism which is dead, it doesn't grow. Growth is equivalent to increase in mass of cells or number of cells. Reproduction. It is also characteristics of living organisms. In multicellular organisms, it refers to the production of progeny, refers to as sexual reproduction. Organisms reproduce by asexual means also. Reproduction means there are two types of reproduction. One is asexual and another one is sexual, right? In multicellular organism, it refers to the production of progeny. This refers to sexual reproduction. But in unicellular organisms, they reproduce by asexual means. In case of amoeba, their reproduction is by binary fission. Fungi, fungi is the filamentous algae, means it has many filaments. It multiply and spread easily due to millions of asexual spores on their body. They produce fungi and protonym of mosses. They multiply by fragmentation. Amoeba by binary fission, fungi by asexual spores, or we can say by fragmentation. Fungi and protonema mosses, they multiply by fragmentation, means they reproduce by fragmentation. In lower organisms like yeast and hydra, we observe budding, means budding is the form of reproduction in lower organisms like yeast and hydra. In planaria are the flatworms. We observe true regeneration in them, means their reproduction is by true regeneration. That is, fragmented organism regenerates the lost part of its body and becomes a new organism. They can easily regenerate the lost part of their body, like an lizard. Unicellular organisms like bacteria, algae, amoeba, reproduction is same as growth. In unicellular organisms like bacteria, algae, amoeba, their reproduction is same as their growth. That is, there is the increase in number of cells. In a single-celled organisms, we are not very clear about growth and reproduction because both are same in them. Organisms that don't reproduce like mules, sterile, worker bees, infertile humans, etc. Hence, reproduction also can't be a defining characteristic of living organisms. Till now, we have seen that growth and reproduction, they are not used or they are not proper for defining the characteristic of living organisms. We cannot say that they reproduction and growth means living. We cannot say. Here are the examples. Organisms that don't reproduce are mules, sterile, worker bees, and infertile humans. Metabolism. All living organisms are made up of chemicals. We know that all living organisms, they are made up of chemicals. Either they are small or big, depending on the various classes, size, functions, etc. And constantly being made and changed into some other biomolecules. There must be some chemical reactions going on in living organisms due to which changes occur in them. And we can see that growth. These chemical conversions are chemical or metabolic reactions. Thousands of these occur simultaneously inside every organism. In every organism, either chemical or metabolic reactions occur. There must be thousands of number of these reactions. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. Sum total of all biochemical reactions occurring inside a living system. Metabolism means sum total of all biochemical reactions that occurs inside a living system. It can be outside the body in cell-free system. Means that metabolism can also occur outside the body in cell-free systems. No non-living object exhibit metabolism. An isolated metabolic reaction outside the body of an organism performed in a test tube, means outside in an organism the metabolic reaction is carried in a test tube, is neither living or non-living but are living reactions. They are not living nor non-living, but they are known as living reactions. In vitro, within the glass. Vitro means within the glass tube, or we can say test tube. Metabolic reactions are not living but are living reactions. Metabolic reactions, they are not living but are known as living reactions. Hence, cellular organization, that is known as metabolism, is the defining feature of living forms. That's why we can say that metabolism is the correct definition for living forms, or we can say feature of living forms. Ability to sense and respond to surroundings or environmental stimuli. It is most obvious and technically complicated feature of column. It is the feature of all living organisms. It can be physical, chemical, or we can say it is biological. Plants respond to external stimuli like light, water, temperature, and other organisms or pollutants, etc. All organisms from prokaryotes, that is the single celled, or we can say that don't have a membrane bound nucleus, to the most complex eukaryotes. There is the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes that are generally asked. Prokaryotes don't have membrane bound nucleus, whereas eukaryotes have membrane bound nucleus. Prokaryotes don't have membrane bound nucleus, whereas eukaryotes have membrane bound nucleus, right? Yeah. Can you sense and respond to environment? Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders. Photoperiod, that is the amount of light, affects reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. It affects in both plants and animals. All organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. Human being is the only organism who has self-consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the defining property of living organism. We can say anything which has consciousness or which has conscious, that is living. So this is also the defining property for living organisms. We have seen till now metabolism and consciousness. These are the defining property for living organisms. When it comes to human beings, it is more difficult to define the living state. We observe the patients lying in coma in hospitals, virtually supported by machines which replaced heart and lungs. The patient is otherwise brain dead. The patient has no self-consciousness but is living. The person which are in coma, they are living but they have no self-consciousness. So we cannot say that the person is living or consciousness is true to define living. All living phenomena are due to underlying interactions. Every living phenomena that occurs in living beings or living things are due to underlying interactions, means chemical reactions or some other reactions. Properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituents of the organelle, but they arise as a result of interactions among molecular components that comprises the organelle. They result of interactions among the molecular components that comprises the organelle. These interactions result in emergent properties at a higher level of organization, and this phenomena is true in organizational complexity at all levels. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating. They can self-replicate, they are evolving, and they are self-regulating interactive system that is capable to respond to external stimuli. Means living organisms, they are capable to self-replicate, they can evolve, and they can easily interact, or we can say regulate interactive system that is capable to respond to external stimuli. All living organisms relinked to one another by the sharing of common genetic material but to varying degrees. All living organisms, they are linked to one another because they share common genetic material, but the genetic material of everyone has some varying degrees difference. They are not very different, but yeah, some have small difference. Diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms. If we look around, we will see a large variety of living organisms in every form, in the form of animal, in the form of living being, several organisms that you can't see with your naked eye, but they are all around you, like bacteria, viruses. If you were to increase the observation area, the range and variety of organisms you see would increase, it will increase. Similarly, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms there. This refers to the biodiversity or the number and types of organisms present on Earth. This is the definition for biodiversity. We know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names, but these local names would vary from place to place, so we have to define a particular system so that every organism must be known with the same name all over the country. This process is known as nomenclature, that every organism must have a single name or have the same name all over the world. This process is known as nomenclature to define the name. It is only possible when the organism is described correctly, means its characteristics are described correctly, and we know what organism name is attached to. This is known as identification, means firstly nomenclature, and then firstly we have to do identification of its characteristics, that how its name has come. Number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, scientific names are based on principles, criteria, which are provided in ICBN, that is the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. ICBN is for plants, and animal taxonomists have evolved ICZN. ICZN is for animals, means they are evolved by animal taxonomists and they are evolved by plants taxonomists. Scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism enable people to arrive at the same name, means if the organism has some description, everyone would arrive on the same name. Each name has two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. The system that provides a name with the two components are the generic name and the specific epithet. This system is known as binomial nomenclature. Binomial means two. Given by Carolus Linnaeus. This system was given by Carolus Linnaeus. That is, the binomial nomenclature was given by Carolus Linnaeus. Example, mango. The scientific name of mango is Mangifera indica. In this, Mangifera represents its genus and indica represents its specific epithet. Linnaeus described 5,900 species of plants in his book Species Plantarium and 4,326 species of animals in Systema Naturae. These are the two books written by Linnaeus. He has described 5,900 species of plants in his book named the Species Plantarium and 4,326 species of animals in his book called Systema Naturae. Universal rules of nomenclature. Let's see the rules. Biological names are generally in Latin and are written in italics. The names are in Latin but are written in italics. First word represents genus with the capital letter and second represents specific epithet which starts with a small letter. First word is represents genus with capital letter. Second represents specific epithet with small letter. Both the words when handwritten are separately underlined or printed in italics to indicate Latin origin. These words are printed in italics to indicate Latin origin when we are writing in hand. Name of author appears after the specific epithet in written and is written in abbreviation. Example, Mangifera indica linen. This is the name for mango. It indicates that this species was described by Linnaeus. This Linnaeus name is here written in abbreviated form. So we can say that Mangifera indica is described or founded by Linnaeus. Since it is impossible to study all organisms, so by classification it becomes possible. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. This is the definition for classification. And by classification we can describe like insects. We can describe or classify insects that anything which has 6 legs. This is insects. This is grouped in the context of insects. Similarly, we can say that anything which walk on feet and hands use hands to walk, that is classified in animals. Example, suppose we were to say mammals, we have to say the mammals. You would of course think of animals with the external ears. If we think about mammals, the characters which come in our mind is external ears, body here. Similarly, if we talk about wheat, the picture in our mind will be of wheat, not rice. If we were to think about wheat, we will imagine the picture of wheat only, not anything else. Hence, animals, wheat, mammals are the convenient categories we use to study organisms. The scientific term for these categories is taxa. To define these categories, we use a scientific term known as taxa. Plants also form their different taxa. Based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is called taxonomy. The characteristics by which we can define an organism or we can classify an organism, this process of classification is known as taxonomy. The main purpose of classification is to establish relationships amongst organisms. Hence, characterization, then identification, then classification. Characterization means to define the characters or to find the characteristics of a particular organism, then identifying that who have identified it, then classify in the particular group, and then naming. Nomenclature means naming. These are the processes that are basic to taxonomy, the science that deals with the diversity of organisms and then comparative evolutionary relationships and grouping of organisms at every level. This is known as systematics. The scope of systematics include identification, nomenclature, and classification. This is the scope for systematics. Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step process, but it involves a hierarchy of steps. Means it involves many steps. Each step here is known as rank or category. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called taxonomic category. And all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy, which is referred to a unit of classification and represents the rank, or we can commonly known it as taxon. Each step represents rank or category. Category is the part of overall taxonomic arrangement, so we call it as taxonomic category, and all categories constitute together, so they are known as taxonomic hierarchy, which is referred to as a unit of classification, and we can commonly known it as taxon. Example, insects group represents a group of organisms sharing these common features. That groups represent category. Category denotes rank, and each rank or taxon represents a unit of classification. These are some points to remember. Groups, anything which is grouped, like insects, they represent a particular group because they share common features. Group represents category, then category represents rank, that on which rank they are, then each rank or taxon represents a unit of classification. Then taxonomic groups or categories, they are the distinct biological entities and not merely morphological aggregates. Taxonomical studies have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum, or division, class, order, family, genus, and species. They are the common categories. To place an organism in various categories, the basic requirement is the knowledge of characters of an individual. If we were to place a particular organism in a category, we have to get the basic required knowledge of characters of that individual. Then we will be able to group that organism in the particular group. This helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind or of the other kind. Let me again tell you the name of categories first. Categories include kingdom, phylum, or we can say division, then comes class, then order, then comes family, then genus, and then species. Firstly, let's discuss about species. A group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities. A group of individual organisms that have similarities. They are known as species. We can distinguish one species from the other based on the distinct morphological differences, like Mangifera indica, that is the name for mango, Solanum tuberosum, potato, and Panthera leo, that is lion. All the three names represent the specific epithets, while the first words are genera and represent another level of taxon or category. The last words represents the specific epithets, whereas first word represents genera, which represents another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithets represent different organism but having morphological similarities. Example, Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and Solanum includes species like Nigrum, Melongona. Human beings belong to the species Sapiens, which is grouped in the genus Homo. Means everything which has same morphological similarities may be defined with the different specific epithet and same genus. The scientific name thus for human being is written as Homo sapiens. We called human beings means human being scientific name is Homo sapiens. Genus. It comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in comparison to other genera. The species which has more characters in common than other genera, then genera are aggregates of closely related species. They are grouped in genus. Genera that are the aggregates of closely related species, they are grouped in as genus. Example, potato and brinjal. They are the two different species but they belong to the same genus known as Solanum. Lion, that is Panthera leo. Leopard, that is Panthera pardus. And tiger, that is Panthera tigris. They are all species of genus Panthera. So in these, the genus is same, only specific epithet is different. This genus differs from another genus, Phallus, which includes cat. This leopard, that Panthera genus, is different from Phallus. Panthera is used for lion, leopard, and tiger, whereas Phallus is used for cat family. It has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. In family, in this group, similarities are less in number as compared to genus and species group. Families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive feature of plant species. Example, Solanum, Petunia, Datura are placed in the family Solanaceae because they represent plant species. So they come in the same family that is known as Solanaceae. Among the animals, the genus Panthera, comprising lion, tiger, leopard, is along with the genus Phallus, that is used for cats in the family Felidae, and dogs in the family Canidae. Order. Order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters. Order or the other taxonomic categories, they are identified based on the aggregates of characters, means mixture of characters. Order is the assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters, that are similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera included in a family. The similar characters which are less in number included in different genera, they represents family, or we can say order. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae, are included in order polynomials. We include these categories, that is, or we can say groups, Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae. They are included in order polynomials, mainly based on floral characters they have. The animal order, Carnivora, includes families like Felidae and Canidae. Felidae is for cats and Canidae is for dogs. Cats and dog family, that is Felidae and Canidae, they are included in the order known as Carnivora. Class, it includes related orders, the orders which are relatable to each other. They are included in class. Example, order Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla, is placed in the class Mammalia, and order Carnivora comprises of lion, tiger, cat and dog. Order Primata comprises of monkey, lion, gorilla, Mammalia. Gorilla is placed in the class Mammalia, and Carnivora comprises of lion, tiger, cat and dog. In this, I am writing here order Primata includes monkey, then Mammalia class includes gorilla, and Carnivora includes lion, tiger, cat and dog. Phylum, classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals. They constitute the next higher category known as phylum. All these together comprises phylum. These are based on the common features like presence of notochord. They have common features like presence of notochord and dorsal hollow neural system. So they are included in phylum Chordata because they have these features. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are included in a higher category called division. In case of plants, classes which have few similar characters, they are included in higher category than phylum, or we can say same as phylum, known as division. In case of plants. Kingdom, all animals to various phyla are assigned to the highest category. They are known as kingdom Animalia. In the classification system of animals, the kingdom is known as kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Plantae comprises all plants from various divisions. From various categories, animals are included in kingdom Animalia, whereas plants are included in kingdom Plantae. Taxonomic categories are the broad categories. Taxonomists have also developed subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Taxonomists have developed subcategories of them. As we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics grows on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more the characteristic; higher the taxa, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification in that time or in this due to this becomes more complex. Here, let's see the organisms with the taxonomic categories. Man. Its biological name is Homo sapiens. Housefly, Musca domestica. Mango, Mangifera indica. Wheat, Triticum evistimum. Genus, man is included in genus Homo. Housefly in Musca. Mango in Mangifera. Wheat is known as Triticum. Family, man is included in the family Hominidae. Housefly in Mosidae. Mango in Anarcadiaceae and wheat in Poaceae. Order, man is included in order Primata. Housefly in Diptera. Mango in Sapindales and wheat in Poales. Class, man is included in Mammalia class. Housefly in Insecta. Then mango in Dicotyledone. Wheat in Monocotyledone. Then phylum or division, man is included in phylum Chordata. housefly in Arthropoda, mango in Angiospermae, and wheat in Angiospermae. Arthropoda means invertebrate. In this, arthropoda means invertebrate. And Diptera means that have two wings and can really fly. Have two wings and can fly. Here is one more word, anacardiaceae. It means flowering plants. Flowering plants that have flowers, they are known as anacardiaceae. And poaceae means grasses of natural grassland. They are known as poaceae. Taxonomic aids. Taxonomic studies of various species of plants, animals, or other organisms. They are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in knowing our bioresources and their diversity. These require correct classification, identification of organism. Identification requires intensive laboratory and field studies. If we have to identify an organism, this requires very intensive laboratory and field studies, means more and more study we have to gain about to identify. Primary source of taxonomic studies are the collection of actual specimens of plants and animals. They are fundamental to studies and essential for training in systematic. It is used for classification, and the information gathered is also stored with the specimen. The information gathered is stored with the specimen or the species which we have collected. In some cases, specimen is preserved for future studies that have still less characteristics, but if we want to know more about, the specimen is preserved for future studies. Biologists have established certain procedures and techniques to store and preserve the information as well as the specimen. To store specimens as well as their information, biologists have developed special techniques or procedure. Herbarium. It is the storehouse of collected plant specimens that are firstly dried, then pressed, and then preserved on sheets, which are arranged according to a universally accepted system of classification. Specimens, along with their description on herbarium sheets, become a storehouse for future use. This is done by biologists who have stored plant specimen along with their information for future studies. The herbarium sheets also carry a label which provide information about date and place of collection of that particular specimen. Its English, local and botanical names, family, collector's name, etc. It is all included on the herbarium sheet. They are served as a quick referral systems in the taxonomical studies, and everyone can gather many information through these herbarium sheets. Botanical gardens. These specialized gardens have collections of living plants for reference. Plants here are grown for identification, and each plant is labeled indicating its botanical or scientific name and its family, from which family it is there. Some of these are at Kew, that botanical gardens are at Kew, England, Indian Botanical Garden that is in Howrah, India, and National Botanical Research Institute which is in Lucknow, India. Museums. Museums are generally set up in educational institutes. They have a collection of preserved plant and animal specimens for study and reference. They are preserved in containers or jars in preservative solution so that they may not dry or become not for use, means they cannot be used if they are not stored in the preservative solutions. Specimens are also preserved as dry specimens. Insects are preserved in insect boxes after collecting, killing, and peeling. Larger animals are stuffed and preserved. They also have collections of skeletons of animals who die. They collect their skeletons and put it in a museum so that people can watch. Zoological parks. Places where wild animals are kept in protected environments under human care. They are the zoological parks. This enables us to learn about their food habits and behavior. All animals in the zoo are provided the conditions similar to their natural habitats. Key. It is the another taxonomical aid that is used for identification of plants and animals, which is based on similarities and dissimilarities. Keys are based on the contrasting characters, generally in a pair called couplet. It represents the choice made between two opposite options. This results in acceptance of one and the rejection of the other. Each statement in the key is called lead. Each statement in a key is called lead. Separate taxonomic keys are required for each taxonomic category for its identification. Keys are generally analytical in nature. Flora means that contains habitat and distribution of plants. Manuals. They provide information for identification of names of species in an area. Monographs. They contain information on any one taxon. And catalogs. They are some other means of recording descriptions. They also help in correct identification. These provide index to the plant species found in an area. These flora, manuals, etc. These are keys by which we can see that what is used for. That flora represents habitat and distribution of plants. Manuals provide information for identification of names of species in an area. Let's go on a blank slide to discuss some more definitions or important points. Firstly, let me tell you that largest herbarium is at Kew, which is in England, right? And largest botanical garden is in Moscow. And most famous botanical garden, most famous botanical garden is in Royal Botanical Garden, which is at Kew, right? Then key, which I have told you, these are given by, that is the another taxonomical aid. It is given by John Ray. He also wrote a book and introduced the word species, plantarum, etc. Then let me tell you the correct representation of organization levels in living beings. Let me tell you first. Atomic, first comes atomic, then molecular, then subcellular, then comes cellular, then from cellular tissues are formed, then organ system, and from when organ system develop, it forms an individual. The name of a plant order, the name of a plant order usually end with ales. As you can see with the help of examples, the name of plant order end with ales. Two animals, they belong to the same kingdom but different classes. They may belong to the same phylum. So this is all about our chapter. If you like my video, share, like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.